Welcome to Smart Branding, a podcast dedicated to branding, naming, and domain names. I'm Daria Vodopianova, and with my guests, we try to help you create and grow strong, memorable, and meaningful brands online. I believe time is one of our most precious assets, and so I want to thank you in advance if you decide to spend the next 30 minutes with us. I promise to do my best to make those worth it. Let's go. So today I have the pleasure of speaking with Daria Vodopianova, international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and personal branding and LinkedIn strategist. She also loves helping people get booked on big stages. So let's start with thank you for joining us and making the time, Daria.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And tell me a bit about yourself, about your background. How did you get to do what you do?
Sure. So I have had a business with my founder, my partner for more than 12 years now. And our company is called Thought Leadership Academy. And it came from a place from really wanting to help smart people to build a business around their knowledge. So my partner speaks 12 languages, and in 2014 he got invited to do a TEDx in France, actually, that really got viral. And since then we have done 6 TEDx talks. We train TEDx speakers. We're very much involved in the speaking industry. And what I realized was that a lot of coaches, consultants, infopreneurs had no idea how to actually build a business around their knowledge in a sustainable way. And the coaching industry is one of the biggest booming industries in the world, right? So it was me being faced with that reality of us, going viral online with the TEDx talk and having people just reaching out, and the business advice we were getting were so traditional in the sense of you should open an office, you should, go Berlitz style with a trainer program, and it's almost like you become a manager. But a thought leader, when it comes to thought leadership, you don't want to be just sitting in an office. You want to be out and speaking, you want to be writing, you want to be doing things around that topic. So me, as a thought leader in the space of, really public speaking and building an expert business, I don't do LinkedIn anymore, but for me, what is really important is how can I be out and speak on podcasts, on stages? Like, how can I write about it? How can I impact more people, not one-on-one, but maybe group coaching online? Like, how can I share my expertise? So our business came from a need of doing it for ourselves a couple of years ago. And since 2016, we have this company called Thought Leadership Academy, where we literally train speakers, experts to use speaking to monetize their knowledge, but also actually leverage that as a marketing tool, and also create a back-end system. So it's not only speaking is the entrance point, like let's say a marketing, and we help them to create a whole business around their knowledge.
So that's very closely related to personal branding and personal brand in a way, if I understand correctly.
So personal branding, it's always linked to the fact that you, as a thought leader, you cannot normally sell a thought leadership business. You can, license and you can do things like that. But personal branding in the sense is that you are the brand, you are the knowledge, you are the one creating the content, the methodology, you are the one your vitality is important. So as a speaker, we work a lot on personal branding for speakers as part of that, because you can be the best speaker in the world, but if you don't know how to have a brand, how to have an influence with your speaker brand, it will be harder for you to get booked on the stage that you really want to be on.
And public speaking is something that, whether we like it or not, we kind of, as soon as you enter the world of, I was going to say entrepreneurs, but I guess you can just say the world of adults. I mean, we speak everywhere, whether we, call it that or not. You are in negotiation with people all the time. Colleagues, business partners, investors, etc., etc. So what would you say, in your experience, are the mistakes people make most often when it comes to that?
When it comes to public speaking, or
yes. Yes.
I would say is that there's this belief that I'm a good speaker. I don't need to be trained in speaking. And as much as we all are born, I mean, not all, but most of us, we speak, right? Most of us have the opportunity to speak and use our voice to share what's going on inside, to share it with the world. In our businesses, we use our voice all the time. The problem that I see is that this idea of, well, I can just launch a podcast, I can just go on the stage and I can just wing it. And I do feel that it's a disrespectful way of the audience, because if you think about it, there's people coming to listen to this podcast and they're coming to listen to you when you're on the stage, and they took the time to travel. They took the time to not be with their families, to not be with themselves, to be there in that room, in that moment, either it's a virtual or physical room. And if we show up saying, well, I'm just winging it because it feels cool, it's not really giving an honor to that stage. Yes, it's much easier to get on the stage now. It doesn't mean that you should be on that stage if you are just, not respecting that. I see it's an art form. It's really an art form, meaning that I want to democratize the industry. I want more people to be on stages, but that doesn't mean that you're not trained. So my clients are all media trained. When they go on podcasts, they're the best podcast guests in the industry. Why? Because they are media trained. We actually train them. How do they become great at storytelling, great at sharing their knowledge? They know how to do it. They know how to do a workshop that actually create transformation. They know how to do a talk that will change, people really wake up to, wow, that was amazing. They know how to write a bio. They know how to write a speaker website. They know how to create a TEDx, like a description. They know how to apply. They know how to pitch. They know how to leverage. They know the industry. So I think that there's a next level that you can play on. So when you start speaking, I think start whenever, if you feel called to be on the stage, if you feel called to share your message, go for it and get help, get trained, get someone to actually show you how to become a masterful world-class speaker, because a world-class speaker will not just show up and say, oh, I'm just winging it. They are actually prepared. The best speakers in the world are media trained. They know what they're doing. It's like an athlete or if Lady Gaga will prepare for Super Bowl, she will not just wing it. That's how we approach the speaking industry as well. It's a whole thing. It's like, how do you dress? How do you show up? What is your brand? Like, there's a finesse. So personal branding wise, we come back to what you're saying. The personal brand as a speaker, there's a whole finesse and detail to it. I am seeing speakers as artists. Like, we have the same, we're closer to, in our approach to getting someone on stage, we're closer to Lady Gaga than to someone who's doing coaching in a corporate, right? Our approach is really about how can you shine from inside out? How can you shine? How can you step up? So when you speak, the world is listening and you have this presence. And that is also about how do you show up? Are you present in the interviews? Going on podcasts and just like, do you have lights? Do you have camera? Do you show up on time? Do your team, it's the whole thing. Like, can you be a professional?
Yeah, absolutely. I can appreciate it. And would you say, because we're mainly talking here about people willing to monetize in a way their expertise by speaking, by sharing it with wider audience on stage, offline or online. If we were to define who could benefit from your services, is there any industry, age, material status? How would you say, or who would you say would be most fitting, suitable for that?
So there are two ways to monetize speaking. One is to actually be a professional speaker being paid to speak. You can be paid, you go on the stage and people are paying. What we work with is to leverage speaking. So basically what you are doing right now, you are having a podcast. It's a form of speaking. And I'd say it's the question is who can benefit from this? Someone who's playing a bigger game. Someone who is not just having a business for the sake of, let me just have a passive income, and just do this. I am committed to share this message to the world because I can talk about it day in and day out. If you are if you want your podcast to be the best in the world, if you want to be on the stages, if your dream, you're like, a lot of my clients, they come to me and say, I have a vision of seeing myself speaking to big audience. Like, I have a calling. It's something inside me is telling me that my message is too big to share with my small coaching container or the couple of people I get to impact right now. So if you feel like I have a huge impact in the world to make, either as a founder or leader or a coach, or it doesn't really matter, but it has to do with a feeling that my message is so important and I'm so ready to share it with the world. Yeah.
And that kind of, I saw one of your TED Talks where you were sharing your story, and I was like surprised to actually see that you yourself were not always like that. Like, you had problems sharing your story. You didn't feel that it's important enough to be like the front running thing to share it. And I feel that's where a lot of entrepreneurs are, especially on the first business journey. They feel like it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about the company. I don't want to be, putting myself in the front of all that.
Yeah.
What would you say to those type of people?
Well, for sure, for many years, my partner was the one speaking, and I felt no need to be on the stage. It felt very much, why would I go on the stage? It's not about me. But what I do over the years, the change that has happened is that me realizing that it's never about me, and nobody can tell my story about why I founded this company or my experience or anything that I've gone through better than myself. And it's so important to create diversity. And I think it's living your values. My values are, I want to see more women really crushing it in the industries. I want more women to, create wealth, generational wealth. I want women to step up. I want women to be free. I want more diversity in different industries such as tech or wherever there is. Like, I really believe in leadership for women as a way to change our world, but not only. I do believe that we need more diversity. I feel like it should not only be, the stories we hear on stages. I love when it comes from different countries. So when it comes from different, industries, different ages, it's a very monotonous narrative that we are hearing, even on social media. And for me, my values is that I want to create more diversity and inclusion in the stories we hear. I want to hear different stories from cultures, experiences, age, gender, all that. So we can start seeing the actual colorful facets we have of our societies, not just, a version. So we don't feel so much pressure. Like, women today, teenagers are feeling so much pressure from how they should look. And I do believe that the narrative we're creating is part of that problem. So if I want more diversity and inclusion, I have to start with myself. Because why? I'm Russian Ukrainian. I lived 5 years in France. I lived all over Europe. I am the first generation entrepreneur in my family. I am, breaking through in an industry with new things. I am an example for someone that this is possible. And I have to remember that someone in that audience will think, but I am not the speaker. I will not be able to do that. I will never be the same, right? So if I can say, look, this is my story. You can take whatever you want, but I went through this, and this was the challenges I went through, and this is what happened, and this is the help I got, these are the mentors, and I can just share, and whatever they can take from that, that will allow other people to get empowered to actually change their lives around. So this is like living in my integrity with my values. That's how I see it.
Sure. And do you help people find that within themselves? Is that part of the program that you have?
Usually people come to me and they can feel it. They can feel that they have it. And what I am good at is to take it, like bringing it out. So I do have, we have 3 pillars in our academy. One pillar is the speaking, one is the actual, like the business side of it, the premium pricing, and one is self-leadership. And actually I have one of those programs called She Leads, which is all about emotional intelligence and self-leadership, because I do believe that if you don't have the capacity to lead yourself, to charge more, to go on those stages, to go for those big opportunities, like there's an inner work that has to come with it of stepping into that. So it is all interlinked for sure.
And last thing, I don't want to hold you for too long. You touched at some point on when we were talking about whether it's online or offline. How do you feel, or what do you feel is the difference, or is there a difference between like how one should behave and speak on stage or online?
I mean, it's not the same medium, right? So when you are online, let's say you're on a podcast on the summit, you have to think about where is the audience right now. So if I am speaking on a podcast, I have to get into the mind, when will this be consumed, right? We talk about the length of a podcast. We talked just before getting on this recording. A podcast cannot be, well, it can if you're Joe Rogan, but most of the podcasts are like 20, 30, maximum 40 minutes. Why? Because the length of the time span we can spend. But you can be in a seminar, and because you are in a seminar and there is an energy, the length can be different. So you have to work with the format. You have to think about, what I always do is to think about, when will this be consumed, and when will this be, how will this be consumed? So if I'm the last speaker of the day, I know that my audience, if I'm like speaking in the conference, I know that my audience is tired. I know that they have been listening the whole day. Their mind is getting tired. You know, if you have like speaker after speaker. So my role is then to create more interaction, to get them up and move, maybe to get them more storytelling, less strategy. Like, how can I serve the moment? So I think the more you will be able to get out of your own head and think, how can I serve the moment for the person who's going to listen to this or read this? How can I serve them the best? Then you will be able to create the best for physical or virtual. But you have to think always, where do they come from? Because you're not the only person in their life. You know, this podcast episode will come before going like grocery shopping and picking up the kids, or maybe it is before a sales call and, you know, going to the gym. Like, I don't know. It happens at the moment. So how can we interact with that moment?
Yeah, I love that advice. So, and I feel like it can apply to other things as well. Something that it seems so simple, but we kind of forget it oftentimes. It's a focus on the audience, because ultimately that's who you are there to serve.
Absolutely.
What are you up to now? What's next that's exciting and interesting that you're doing?
So something that I decided doing this week is to actually launch my first conference. And that is something that is going to be called She Leads for Female Empowerment. It's going to be in Barcelona in June 2023. That was something I decided this week, and I'm starting to announce it. So, you know, there's a moment between you like, I'm realizing it, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. So that is huge, because I want to create a stage for women to share their stories. And I think it's an amazing opportunity in a city like Barcelona to do that and train the speakers as well to be really performant on stage and create the whole experience, from getting them ready to find their story, to improve their storytelling and the public speaking, and like getting them on the stage and having a beautiful moment where our community comes together in physical space.
I love that. I'd actually, do keep me updated on that, because I'd love to come to Barcelona anyway, but that'll be great. That gives me a good reason.
You're more than invited. Yeah.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Cool. And last thing, where can people reach you?
So I'd say the best one would be LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you type dariav.com, you will usually come to what's really going on in my life at this moment when the recording is coming up. So that could be a good way as well.
Great. All right. Well, thank you. That's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Tatiana. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in this episode of Smart Branding Podcast. Feel free to visit smartbranding.com for more information, and reach out if you have any suggestions, questions, ideas, or just want to learn more about how a good domain name strategy can help you build a strong and successful brand. See you next time.